Greetings, Avengers! This is Lorne, your guild advisor, and welcome to my review for Is It Wrong to Try to Pick with Girls in a Dungeon, Era of the Orion, or as many of you already know it as, DanMachi the movie, Era of the Orion. Now, Era of the Orion is a movie produced by JC Staff, the same people who animated Season 1 of DanMachi, as well as Sword Oratoria, and it's licensed by Sentai Filmworks. And yesterday is when I watched the movie, when they released it through Fathom events for United States theaters on July 23rd. Now, there has been online streaming for it in other countries, like Latin America has it on Netflix, and Japan even has it streaming already. And the Japanese physical release for the movie is on July 31st, so there will be other ways to watch it if you haven't seen the movie already. And for this review, the first part of the video will be a general review of the movie, so if you haven't seen it yet, there's not going to be any spoilers for it, it's just my general thoughts on the movie itself. And then the latter part of this video will be some in-depth discussion, some of the things in the movie while I discuss some of the things I like, some of the things I thought could have been improved on, and such. So look forward to the review, and I'll get started. Now, overall, I really enjoyed the movie. It's pretty much everything I expected it would be, and I'm really happy I didn't watch the in-game event in the mobile game DanMachi Memoria Freeze, because they had the entire story of the movie played out in visual novel format a few months after the movie released in Japan. And I'm happy I didn't spoil myself there, though there is this big spoiler if you play through the actual event and help with the event boss. That's a big spoiler, but thankfully that didn't spoil some other twist in the movie, so I'm very thankful for that. And I'm glad I didn't just watch the movie on the internet when it was available for streaming in other countries, because I really do appreciate being able to see the movie on the big screen on the theater as a first-time experience. And like I said earlier, I really enjoyed the movie. There are a few things I had problems with, mainly just pacing problems, because overall I think the runtime was a bit too short. And I think part of that problem is because JC Staff had the movie release, and then literally the season after is when season 2 starts for DanMachi. We're in season 2 right now during the summer season, and the movie released in February in Japan. So I think the runtime was affected by the second season having to release in the summer. So for comparison's sake, the Sword Art Online movie, Ordinal Scale, that released, and then it took a whole year and a half for the third season to release. And here with DanMachi, the movie releases, and then a few months later, about 4 months later, is when season 2 starts. So I definitely think having those two releases so close to each other affected the runtime of this movie. But overall, I enjoyed the movie for what it was. The art in the movie itself is a step above what you would expect from a TV series release, of course, because they need to make everything more detailed to see on a big screen. They actually said that in the interview after the movie itself. But yes, the art is gorgeous. There are a few set pieces there that I really like looking at. A lot of the backgrounds look beautiful, especially when they get to the forest area or the scene on the lake. And also, there's other beautiful scenes there towards the end of the movie. I'm not going to say what that is, but it is a beautiful movie to look at, especially in some of the scenes. Especially involving Artemis, the original character, which I should dive into because this is pretty much a movie made for her. As many of you know, Era of the Orion is an original movie that's non-canon to the overall DanMachi universe. Now, because the movie itself is non-canon, doesn't mean that's a reason not to watch the movie. I think the movie stands alone pretty well, and even though it's non-canon, there are a lot of scenes to enjoy, a lot of character interactions to enjoy. A cool arc for Belle, even though that doesn't have a lasting effect on the story overall because it is non-canon. But I did enjoy the relationship between Belle and Artemis. And going back to Artemis, the original character, I really enjoyed her a lot of what we got to see of her. The unfortunate thing is, because the runtime of the movie was a bit on the short end, there might not be enough time for many viewers to appreciate Artemis's character. Now, there was a prologue released in that mobile game where you get to learn a bit more about Artemis's character, and I think that really helped with my enjoyment of the movie. But again, a movie should stand alone by itself, and you shouldn't have to go to supplementary material to complement it. But even then, I do think they did a good job with Artemis's character. I think Amori Sensei did a good job with the script for the movie. I do think they probably cut a bit of his script for the movie because he's a writing monster when it comes to DanMachi, because he's been releasing he did a double release in Japan last month in June. We had volumes 15 of DanMachi and Sword Oratoria Volume 12 release on back-to-back days. So I know Amori Sensei can write a lot, and I do think a bit of his script was cut here. But even so, it was still a pleasurable experience. Now for the animation, there's a lot of good cuts, especially for my favorite character Ryu, as well as like the ending scenes for the ending fights. The animation is pretty solid, a step above what you would see in the TV series, and I do hope some of that carries over into Season 2, because there are a lot of things that are going to happen in Season 2 that I want to see animated very well, and this movie is a testament that they can do a good job at that if they put the proper time and planning in. Now, there is a bit of CG used in this movie, especially for the boss monster of the movie, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be looking at the trailers. They do a really good job of like hiding the CG with smoke and such, and not focusing on the monster for too long when CG is used. So I do think they did a good job with the CG, a decent enough job to hide it. And a few of the cuts are still in 2D, like you can see it's drawn over and it's not too noticeable there. So I do think they did a decent enough job with the CG that's used in the movie. And then for the character designs, like you see right here, I have 3 of the standees. They do have new outfits for the movie. I like them myself. I know some people thought that they're too similar to their original outfits, but I myself think there's enough differences there. I especially like Ryu's design because even though the bloomers are parts of Ryu's original character design in the main series light novels, in every other instance where Ryu is drawn, whether that's the Sword Art Toria light novel or manga, or the manga adaptation for DanMachi or Episode Ryu and Episode Ryu's manga, they all draw her with shorts rather than bloomers, and I do think that fits her character a lot more. And this is me rambling about Ryu, and I should be talking more about Artemis and Belle, because they do have a good relationship in this movie. I do think they're very nice together. I think they had a good chemistry together as two characters, an adventurer and a goddess. And I do like the triangle they have with Hestia as well, because as people know, Hestia is one of the 3 virgin goddesses along with Artemis, and you can see they get along in the movie as well. And I do like the relationship that all 3 of these characters have. Again, the one thing that's unfortunate is that I think the relationship would be served a lot better if there was like a few more scenes inserted in the first half of the movie, building the chemistry between Belle and Artemis and even the rest of the crew that travels with them. And that even the ending of the movie is a bit fast for how it progresses. Like if there was like another 10 minutes or so in the middle, or just an extra scene or 2 towards the end of the movie, I think that would do a lot more to develop the relationship between the characters and make you actually feel for them a bit more. Like I said, I already have an attachment to Artemis because of the mobile game with the prologue, but I think it would be a lot better if, again, the movie was just a bit longer. As for the story and plot overall, it's pretty much what you would expect for an anime movie, just being a singular instance and being non-canon, where you have the hero Belle basically save the world from destruction. But even so, the way it's executed, I think it was done pretty well. And the way the ending of the movie plays out is a bit different than I think what you would expect from a shonen movie, so definitely look forward to that if you haven't seen it. I enjoyed it myself. I do enjoy stories like that where it's not exactly what you would expect, but you feel that it is still the right thing in the movie. Because Belle is definitely challenged in this movie, and it is slightly disappointing that this movie is non-canon, because that would be a very interesting character arc for Belle to go through. But I do understand why the movie is non-canon, because this movie would take place between light novels 5 and 6, which is between seasons 1 and 2. But where the light novel is right now, it would be very difficult to make this movie canon, because it would be strange for where the light novel is right now to just suddenly start referencing that, because the light novel is so far ahead of where this movie takes place that it wouldn't make much sense for Belle to be suddenly having feelings about the story that happens in this movie. And again, I really enjoyed the movie itself. I do think the runtime was a bit short, and I think that's the effect of having season 2 happen so close next to the movie. But again, I enjoyed Artemis, the art, the animation. I do think JC Staff did a very good job here. And if you're a big fan of DanMachi and have not seen the movie, I think it's definitely a worthwhile experience to have, even though it's non-canon. There are a few character cameos that you probably appreciate if you read the light novels. And overall, I think it was just a very enjoyable experience, and I'm glad I waited until now to see the movie myself in theaters. And that's it for my general review of the movie. So if you have not seen the movie yet, I'll be starting spoiler talk, and I'll leave a timestamp in the description for the end of this video. Now, first of all, I just want to go over a few of my favorite scenes, like even just the very beginning of the movie. By the way, rip Ratusa at the beginning of the movie, because Artemis Familia is basically annihilated, and then Ratusa is that character to kind of focus on and who dies immediately. And that just makes me feel bad because I was kind of looking forward to seeing her just for a little tiny bit. Like, if we had a bit more to the first few minutes of the movie, like we actually saw Artemis Familia do some stuff and then see them get annihilated, that would be pretty cool. Well, maybe not cool, but it would make me feel the impact of Artemis losing her Familia a bit stronger. But then we slowly get reintroduced into the town of Orario, and even though we've already seen 2 episodes of Season 2, the very beginning of the movie still feels like a welcome back to Orario, welcome back to DanMachi, with all the vibes it gives you. Because in the movie, it kind of does feel like the beginning of a regular anime movie where the main character wakes up to go about their day. They're greeted by the people on the street. It really does make Orario feel a lot more lively, and I wish we kind of saw more of that in the anime itself, the TV series, because just having the townspeople acknowledge and talk to Belle and greet him, it just makes the world feel more alive. And I do hope, again, that they take the experience from this movie and carry it out through Season 2, and hopefully Season 3 and 4, and so on. And of course, I can't talk about my favorite scenes without talking about my favorite character, Ryu. I think anytime they have her use her luminous wind ability, they do a really good job animating her. Like, she has some very good cuts, especially against Artemis, the boss monster itself. The one thing that I always am a bit disappointed in is because one of Ryu's trademarks is that she can concurrent cast, which is casting magic while also moving around and attacking. And she is one of the best adventurers when it comes to these series that can do it, because some adventurers like Fervaria can move around while concurrent casting, but Ryu is in the thick of it. She's like literally fighting and concurrent casting and chanting at the same time. That's a very risky thing to do, because if you lose your concentration while you're chanting, that could just trigger Ignis Fatuus, and the magic basically just blows up on you and you get hurt from that. But Ryu is able to do that. She's able to fight close quarters while at the same time chanting and using her magic. And you don't really see that in the movie too much. You kind of just see her like fly around and then use it. But again, they have a limited budget and not all of it should be used just so Ryu can have her animated splendor. Like, this is very much a movie about Belle, Hestia, and Artemis, and that's where most of the attention should be brought to. And man, oh man, oh man, I felt so bad for Belle in this movie. But even then, just knowing the character that Belle is, like, he aspires to be this hero that can save everyone. And in this movie, Omori Sensei has him do something that just completely goes against Belle's character. He has Belle basically, essentially, kill Artemis. Now, and that's the twist in the movie that I was talking about. Like, the thing I was spoiled on because of the mobile game was that Artemis was trapped inside that crystal of Artemis. The thing I didn't know was that she was always trapped in that since the beginning of the movie. Like, I didn't realize that this Artemis is actually a remnant. The Artemis you see for most of the movie is actually a remnant of Artemis. It's not her complete self. And that's the other thing that kind of threw me off, because if you read the mobile game prologue, Artemis has a completely different personality from the personality you see at the beginning of the movie when Artemis gets into Orario. Because I'm like, wait, is this the same character? Because she's not acting like the character Artemis I know from the prologue. And then you get Hestia acknowledging that later on in the movie. So again, that's something I don't really like them doing, is having them make supplementary material to the movie that you should probably know about beforehand, because I think movies and anime should stand alone for the duration of its run. So it's kind of unfortunate that you don't get as much of an attachment to Artemis if you don't read other materials before watching the movie. So that's a bit of a bummer, but that did help me understand Artemis a bit more and maybe a bit confused on why Artemis was acting differently, but now I know. And back to Belle having to kill Artemis. I know in my Season 2 Episode 2 review and cut content discussion that I said that mortals could not kill gods and goddesses. That was a tiny bit of a misinterpretation of the line in the light novel. It says one in the laws that's grounded in the land is that mortals cannot kill gods, but that's more of a taboo to say rather than a law by the looks of it. Like, they can do it, but like Osfi acknowledges, like Hermes acknowledges in the movie, like, killing a god is one of the biggest sins you can commit. And that's the other thing that would be so interesting if this was a canon movie, or if it's something that Omori Sensei explores later on in the light novels themselves, is the whole concept of Belle having to bear that sin of killing a god or goddess when it's like one of the ultimate taboos. like you hear Hermes say in the movie that this isn't a story about killing a god. It's a story about saving a girl, and that's essentially what it was Belle saving Artemis from basically being this battery for Artemis to destroy the world. So what Belle did, of course, was a good thing. It was the right thing to do. It's just traumatic for the character that's Belle, because he's this person aspiring to be a hero. He wants to save everybody, and here he has to bear the sin of killing a god or goddess, and that's just traumatic for a character like Belle. Like, you see him cry multiple times in this movie, and I'm sitting there crying with him, because I know how much he reveres gods and goddesses. I know how much it pains him to like let them down. Like, I promised to save you, but in the end, I really couldn't do that. Like, technically Artemis was saved, but it still lingers on in Belle's mind. Like, that's something he failed to do, even though the end result was the correct one. Now, there are a few cameos in this movie that I really appreciated. Well, this isn't necessarily a cameo, but I wasn't expecting it. But Ganesha appears, and I should have known that, because I knew they were going to be riding dragons or drakes or wyverns, of course, throughout their journey to even get to the ruins of Ursos. So I should have expected Ganesha to be here. And this is also one of those times where we get to see more of Hermes' Familia besides Osphie. Like, you saw some of them in Sword Oratoria, but it's really going to be quite a while before we see the characters in Hermes' Familia, like Lulane and Falgar and Thane. It's going to be quite a while before we see more those characters again in future material. So I appreciate seeing them take some of the light here in the movie when it comes to them investigating the ruins of Ursos and basically being like that main front for Orario, because Hermes' Familia is very much that Familia that goes out and does errands for the guild, because they're very experienced with traveling outside of Orario. So it's cool to see more of Hermes' Familia do stuff. And I also appreciate seeing Ryu being with them, because it's not too uncommon for Ryu to be associated with Osphie, because you see them in Volume 5 together. And the one thing I like about Ryu's character is that she has this guilt about her past, being the sole surviving member of her Familia and being blacklisted by the guild. But despite that, she still goes out and tries to help people. She tries to go out and basically save the world right here. She goes out and tries to save Belle and this party in Volume 5. So, and then if you went and read episode Ryu, or played through the episode Ryu story in the mobile game, you know, even there, she can't help but help people. So that's one thing that I really appreciate about Ryu's character. And I know there's some people out there that think that Ryu didn't do too much in this movie, but I don't mind the movie being fan service for the fans. And again, Ryu does save them out of a few binds here, because they get assaulted by a part of the Scorpions, and they're pretty much outnumbered before Ryu gets in there and uses her Luminous Wind. And then, of course, towards the end of the movie, without Osphie and Ryu tanking Artemis, there's no way for Belle to charge up Argonaut and then throw the spear that eventually defeats Artemis, because the way the Argonaut skill works is that he has to be actively charging the skill, and if he loses concentration or gets hit, he loses that charge and has to start over. So without Ryu and Osphie, and then of course the other members of the party holding back Artemis while Belle is charging Argonaut, there's no way that they would be able to defeat it in the first place. So Ryu definitely has a purpose in this movie, as well as Osphie and the other characters. The people that really don't do too much in the movie are pretty much like Loki, Familia, and Otaro. Like, they do get this acknowledgement that they're doing stuff in the dungeon, because the whole situation with Artemis and then it using Artemis's Arcanum to make that arrow in the sky and then shoot it down on the world is making the dungeon and that's something else I want to talk about, because I do like, this is like something only Omori Sensei would do in his own script, because like he mentions a lot in the light novel. I'm not sure if the anime does this enough, but the dungeon is something that is alive. Like, he constantly references that the dungeon is alive and it's stirring and it's afraid of things. And like right here, like, it's afraid that the world is going to end, so it's basically making the monsters go ballistic. And Loki, Familia, and Otaro don't really do too much in this movie. Like, oh, the dungeon is stirring, you better go down there and into the dungeon and quell these beasts before they become a problem. But it really wasn't too much of anything, because you just see like regular monsters just going on a rampage, and that's for Loki, Familia, and Otaro to deal with. But it would have been cooler if there was like an irregular that spawned from the dungeon because of this. But again, because of the short runtime in the movie, They probably wouldn't be able to do something like that, but I do think that would have been really cool to see like a parallel because you have Belle here, who is a lower level adventurer compared to the rest of the cast in the DanMachi universe, and he's the one that's saving the world. So it'd be really cool to see like an actual threat in the dungeon besides just like a minotaur. Like I heard the minotaur is going crazy and other beasts going crazy. It would be cool to see like another irregular beast in the dungeon that provides a good reason for Loki Familia and Otaro and the other stronger Familias to actually stay in Orario and go in the dungeon and stop it from going crazy. And then also at the very end of the movie, we see a few cameos for season 2 characters. I'm not going to name them. They should be pretty obvious if you like watch the opening to season 2 and then look at the few cameos at the very end of the movie here in Arrow of the Orion. And there is one girl that some of you guys might not know. It's the pink-haired one. She's actually an original character for a now discontinued DanMachi game that was on the browser for like Japanese Yahoo called DanMachi Orario Rhapsodia. She's an original character in that, so this was just a nice nod to players that can recognize her. So it's cool to see that acknowledged. But again, guys, I really enjoyed the movie overall. Artemis is probably my favorite goddess right now, so that is a testament to how much I like the movie and her character. Now, one thing you should know if you don't already know is that Japanese audiences who watched the movie in the first week were handed out a short novel by Fujino Omori, the author of the original light novel series, as well as the script for the movie. They got that short novel titled A Fading Journey, which details the 10-day journey that Hestia, Artemis, Belle, and crew have during the movie itself. And there's also another novel titled One Love, which is about Artemis before she gets into Orario, that was handed out to second week moviegoers in Japan. And I really hope that at least when Sentai Filmworks releases the movie here, like physically, I hope those two novels are at least included in like a limited edition for the movie, because I really do want to know what's in the content for those two books. But anyway, guys, if you saw Arrow of the Orion, what were some of your favorite scenes or moments in the movie? Just go ahead and comment below. Tell me if you enjoyed the movie, if you had a few problems with it or not. I know I myself have been saying if it was just a bit longer, like a few scenes that just builds the group overall in the beginning of the movie, and then just extending the ending half of the movie as well, that would just do a lot more for the movie. But again, I think that having season 2 so close to after the movie affected that quite a bit. But that was my review for DanMachi the movie, Arrow of the Orion. If you enjoyed this review, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more DanMachi content. To stay updated with me, follow me on Twitter and join my Discord. And as always, continue enjoying your time adventuring in Orario and the dungeon. This is Lorne, your guild advisor, signing out.